Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be making these workout booty shorts. These are the items you are going to need prior to starting. If you have not subscribed, do subscribe, share, and like. And let's not wait any longer and get started. So these are your pattern pieces. Make sure you have all your notches marked before you separate the actual physical pattern from your cut material. If you are color blocking, do take a look at the instructions so that you can cut the corresponding piece based on where you would want those pieces to be located once the garment is complete. First thing we are going to do is add some pins across the top edge of pattern 3, folding that upper edge right down. This gives you a complete folded edge for your pocket, your side pockets. You're going to do that for both sides and top stitch right across that. Now, if you do not have a cover stitch machine and you have a serger, you can serge the raw edge and then top stitch right across that, or you can zigzag stitch it straight across. The point of it all is to make sure that that raw edge is being folded and is staying in place. Next thing you are going to do is take the right side of pattern 3 and lay it on the right side of pattern 4. Make sure that your notches are matching on both sides. The pattern here, it should be facing the right direction. You're simply making the pocket. Once you have it pinned, you will top stitch along the side of the pocket just to hold it in place, and you will do that for both pieces. Now that your pocket is complete, it will look a little something like this. And now you are going to match the notches on the pocket along with pattern 1 and match the opposite side of the pocket to pattern 2. From here, sew the seam at a 1/2 inch seam allowance using the triple stretch stitch setting on your machine. Once you're done, it will look a little something like this. Go ahead and shift the seam allowance toward pattern 2 and 1. So you're moving it towards the center front and the center back, away from the pocket. Once you have that set in place, you can iron it if need be. Go ahead and top stitch right on top of that. Now, I have a cover stitch machine, so I will be using that to complete my raw edge as well as my top stitching. But if you don't have a cover stitch machine, grab your serger or zigzag stitch over the edge of the seam allowance, and then you can zigzag stitch on the right side, or just use a regular triple stitch right on top of that as a top stitching. The point of it is to just hold that seam allowance in place so that as you wear the garment, that seam allowance is not shifting and moving back and forth. You guys, I apologize for the screen looking so blurry. I did not realize that it was looking like that. My apologies, y'all. But once your top stitching is done, it will look like this. Try to trim any excess threads as you go. That way it doesn't look too crazy on the inside once you are complete. But once your top stitching is done, you are ready to sew your inseam. So put your center back to your center front, right sides together, of course, and pin them in place and sew them up. Now the seam allowance for this is going to be a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and you are going to use the triple stretch stitch setting once again. When you are done, go ahead and treat your seam allowance, whether it is by serging it or zigzag stitching it. It will look a little something like this, and from here you can take one pant leg or one short leg and insert it into the other. Make sure that the right sides are together. What you're going to do is move one of the seam allowance of the inseam towards the front and then the other one towards the center back. Make sure that the seam itself is lined up and simply pin it all along the crotch. You're going to do that for the center front and towards the center back. Once it is fully pinned, you are ready to sew it down. Using your triple stretch stitch setting, go ahead and sew it at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure your seam allowance for the inseam, you have one going forward and one going towards the back of the presser foot. Sew it all the way across, and then from there we are ready to add the elastic. It will look a little something like this, and from here you can turn it outside in so that you can get a full view on what your shorts are looking like thus far. I think we are doing an amazing job. Let's go ahead and continue. Using the thinner elastic, go ahead and pin it towards the waistline of the shorts. Now, you should have your notches still in place. If you don't, go ahead and mark it again. It will be 1 inch from the upper edge of the center back seam. Go ahead and add your notch there, and again, add another extension 1 inch away from the inseam. Using the zigzag stitch setting, sink your needle into the elastic and create a stay stitch. So zigzag it right up into the notch. Backstitch a little bit just so that you could keep it in place. And from there, you are going to stretch the elastic while securing it with the hand that is in the back of the presser foot and slowly gliding it forward. So not only is the presser foot pulling the material back, but you should also be holding it firm and pulling it back as well. If you do not stretch it on both ends, then it will not create the gathered look that you are going for. So be sure to take a look at this and just revise it a few times, just so that you have a better understanding on what is being done. I definitely advise practicing it before you actually do it on your garment, because taking out a zigzag stitch is not the easiest thing to do. It's not fun, okay? Once you get to your notch, go ahead and zigzag stitch it again, this time without stretching it. By adding the zigzag stitch, it will secure it towards the end so that it doesn't unravel. I did not backstitch, but make sure you backstitch because it won't stay, okay? I'm speaking from experience. From there, you are ready to treat your raw edge of the crotch. So you can zigzag stitch the raw edge just like you did with the elastic, or you can serge it. Since I have a serger, I'll be using it to serge. Now that the body of your workout shorts is complete, you are ready to attach your waistband. So grab pattern 6 and pattern 5. You should have 4 of pattern 6 and 2 of pattern 5. Go ahead and grab them and pin your center back seam together, and pattern 6 to pattern 5. Oh my goodness. Once you are done, using your triple stretch stitch setting, go ahead and sew it at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure if you have right sides of the material that it's facing the right side. Your notches should be in place so that you do not get pattern 6 mixed up. The center back looks like where it meets the center, not the center front, but the center front piece. So just make sure that everything is matching up, okay? Your notches are there for a reason. Please mark them. You guys, I wanted to show you something that I messed up on, but I didn't care and I kept going. When you are doing your top stitching for the waistband, it's not necessary, but it gives it a nice look. Make sure that your top stitching, the seam allowance for the waistband, is going towards the center front and for you to top stitch that. As you can see on the right hand side, I top stitch pattern 6 versus the center front. So now my top stitching, my cover stitch is offset with the actual pattern for the bottom. Like the top stitching for the top is offset with the top stitching for the bottom. So just keep that in mind, okay? Don't repeat my mistake. Moving on. So from here, go ahead and pin your waistband to the waistline of your shorts. Make sure that, again, your seam allowance, they're being matched. Trim the areas that need to be trimmed so that it's not too bulky. And then from here, you will use a triple stretch stitch setting in order to sew that all the way around. Take your time with this part. Make sure all of your seam allowances are lined up. Ideally, the short should be sandwiched in between the waistline of the waistband. Once it's complete, go ahead and grab your elastic. It should measure to your waist measurement, and go ahead and overlap it at 1 inch seam allowance. You are going to zigzag stitch those raw edges flat so that it does not roll over and it lays flat. From here, you can pin the upper edge of the shorts of the waistband to the elastic. You are going to pin the elastic to the outside of the shorts so that we can roll it inwards. So go ahead and just pin it all the way around. Once you have it pinned, you will be ready to zigzag stitch. Make sure that the seam allowance that is perpendicular to the waistline is going the same direction at the top as it is at the bottom. This is important because once we add the elastic, we will fully encase the seam allowance and you won't have access to it. So if it's rolling, you're not going to be able to do anything about it because it's fully encased. Starting from your center back seam, go ahead and line up your elastic to the center of the presser foot. Zigzag stitch it all the way across, securing it with your left hand in the back of the machine and slightly guiding it with your right hand in the front of the machine. Once you are done, roll the elastic towards the inside of the garment and pin it in place. You should have a small rolling edge at the top since your zigzag stitch is usually about 1/4, if not less of an inch, wide. Line up the elastic again to the center of the presser foot and again secure it with your left hand and your right hand as you glide it forward. This is how your waistband will look. Just be steady as you sew so that your zigzag spacings can be equal. But from there, you are ready to complete your hem. I am going to use my cover stitch machine again to hem, but all you are going to do is fold that raw edge over at 1/2 inch seam allowance and just top stitch right on top of that. If you don't have a cover stitch machine, use the regular triple stretch stitch setting in order for you to complete the hem. This is what the garment looks like. I hope this was not too difficult. I thought it was, I would say, intermediate. Okay, there's some little technicalities there that you have to be able to work with. But this is what the crotch area looks like. My hem is fully covered with my cover stitch machine. This is your center front. This is what the pockets are looking like. It goes all the way down to the hem, so it's nice and secure. You can still see my oopsie, but I'm not worried about it. My waistband is nice and secure. It has that folded upper edge, which gives you a nice clean finish for the top and the zigzag stitch. This is the back, how it looks like with the elastic. That way it's cinched in onto the booty. I like these shorts so much that I decided to make a secondary pair. This is the overall look on what it looks like, the back, front, and side view. I hope you liked this video. Hope it was easy to put together. If you have any questions at all, do drop them down below. Check out our Facebook page as well as Instagram. And like, share, subscribe. I will see you next time. Thank you again for your purchase. Happy sewing.